What if the so-called gods who shaped the universe were nothing more than a species like any other? For centuries, humanity has looked to the stars with awe and wonder, imagining what kind of beings might exist beyond our world. And for just as long we've been haunted by the idea of encountering something far superior to ourselves, something that could be called a god, beings who have powers and knowledge far beyond human comprehension. But what if these gods weren't gods at all? What if they were simply another species, just like us? And all the stories we've heard about their invincibility, their power, were nothing more than myths. In today's story, we will explore how humanity, the same species that was once terrified of the unknown, proved that even the most powerful beings in the galaxy can be brought to their knees. These gods believed they were untouchable, beyond reproach, and that no one could stand against them. But they were wrong. How did humans, with our simple tools and limited resources, challenge a species so advanced, so powerful, that they were believed to be divine? The answer lies not in strength, not in technology, but in something far more human: resilience, ingenuity, and the will to fight for survival. Join me as we dive into the story of how humanity took on the gods and emerged victorious. This is not a tale of superior weaponry or alien powers. This is a story of how even the most formidable beings can be outsmarted, outlasted, and ultimately defeated by those they underestimated. Picture this: a distant galaxy, far beyond the edge of the Milky Way. In this galaxy, there exists a race of beings unlike anything we've ever known. They are ancient, powerful, and shrouded in mystery. These beings, known as the have been revered by countless civilizations across the stars. To many, they were more than just advanced life forms. They were gods. Legends of their incredible abilities, their limitless power, spread like wildfire across the cosmos. The Aetherians didn't just conquer worlds, they shaped them. It was said that, with a mere thought, they could manipulate time, space, and matter itself. They didn't need armies to do their bidding. No, the Aetherians were the ultimate form of existence, living embodiments of what other species could only dream of achieving. Their very presence demanded worship and awe. But here's the twist: the Aetherians had no interest in ruling through tyranny or fear. They believed that their superiority should be respected, but they didn't force others into submission. They took a more passive approach, allowing other civilizations to worship them, but not demanding it. They watched from afar, offering little guidance, but always maintaining their air of divine indifference. For centuries, the Aetherians remained untouchable. No civilization dared challenge their power. They were too far above the rest of the galaxy. In the eyes of every species, the Aetherians were beyond reach, their reputation as gods unchallenged. But that was about to change. Enter humanity, a young, brash species on a tiny planet called Earth. For years, humans looked to the stars, their minds filled with questions about the universe and what lay beyond. Humanity had its own ambitions: to explore, to understand, and perhaps to conquer. But the idea of facing the Aetherians, that seemed impossible, even laughable. Humans were nothing in comparison to these godlike beings, right? But humanity's story isn't one of staying in the shadows. No, humans are different. We don't back down from a challenge, no matter how impossible it may seem. As the stars aligned and humanity's curiosity led us into the vast unknown, we found ourselves face to face with the very beings we had once considered untouchable. And, let me tell you, the Aetherians, in all their godlike glory, were about to learn the hard way that underestimating humanity would be their greatest mistake. The first encounter didn't come with explosions, with fleets of ships clashing in the void. It wasn't anything like the action-packed scenes you might expect. Instead, it was quiet, almost peaceful. The humans had discovered the Aetherians' domain, a mysterious, seemingly perfect world, floating in a distant part of the galaxy. It was a place unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Towering cities of crystal, skies that shimmered with strange colors, and landscapes that seemed to hum with energy. When humans first arrived, we didn't know what to expect. We had been preparing for years, sending probes and drones to study the area, but the truth was, we had no real plan for how to face an entire species that had long been considered the most powerful in existence. No one was sure what would happen when we finally met them. And then, we made contact. A small, unassuming vessel carrying a group of human diplomats was the first to enter Etherean space. The crew was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. They were to be the first humans to meet the gods, to make history when the Ethereans first appeared. They didn't arrive in battleships or in grand displays of might. No, they arrived with calm, graceful ships that glided through space as if they were part of the very cosmos itself. They were nothing like the aggressive, intimidating forces that other civilizations had feared. In fact, they appeared almost friendly. The Etherean leader, a being known as Solhar, spoke to the humans in a voice that echoed across the stars. It was soothing, warm, almost hypnotic. "We have been watching you, humans." Solhar's voice resonated in their minds. "You are an interesting species. You have much to learn, but we see great potential in you." At first, humanity's diplomats were in awe. The Ethereans spoke of peace, of knowledge, of the potential to guide humanity to greater heights. The humans listened, captivated by the words of these seemingly godlike beings. But as the conversation continued, a subtle shift began to happen. The Ethereans spoke about their power, their timelessness, their superiority. And though their tone was not harsh, their words carried an undeniable weight. It was clear that they believed humanity was still a species to be guided, not equals. And that's when the first crack in the illusion began to form. The humans weren't buying it. They may have been awestruck, but they weren't naive. Something didn't add up. If the Ethereans were truly gods, why hadn't they shown the universe how powerful they were? Why were they content to sit back and observe? If they could control time and space, why didn't they do more? It didn't make sense. It was then that one of the human diplomats, a young officer named Emma Diaz, asked a simple but profound question. "If you are so powerful, why haven't you done more for the universe? Why let civilizations like ours struggle while you watch from the shadows?" The question hung in the air. For a moment, there was silence. Sohor didn't respond right away, and that silence spoke volumes. This wasn't just about humans meeting gods. This was about humans challenging everything they had been told about the galaxy, about their place in it. And as the conversation continued, it became clear. These beings weren't gods at all. They were powerful, yes, but they were not invincible. They were not untouchable. And that was when humanity began to realize the truth. They could be defeated. The battle begins. The truth started to sink in. The first battle was not one of lasers or warships clashing in the stars. No, the first battle was a battle of wits, a battle of ideas. Humanity, in all its raw, untapped potential, started to push back against the Ethereans in the most unexpected way. Through their own doubts, it wasn't that humans were immediately prepared to go to war. We were still figuring things out, still learning how to face an opponent that had long been considered invincible. But as Solahur and the Ethereans continued to speak of their superiority, there was something in the human spirit that began to awaken. We weren't just going to sit back and be told that we were insignificant. No, humans weren't born to kneel before anyone. It started with small acts of defiance. Human engineers back on Earth began to quietly tinker with our technology. We started to develop new strategies, new tools, new ways to counter what the Ethereans had so arrogantly assumed was an unbeatable advantage. And the more we learned about the Ethereans, the more cracks in their armor began to show. The Ethereans had always relied on their overwhelming power to maintain control. They didn't fight battles the way humans did. They didn't have to. Their idea of war was to simply eliminate the threat, using their advanced technology to control every aspect of a battlefield. But they had underestimated one crucial thing: humanity's ability to adapt, to learn, and to outthink its opponents. The first true battle didn't take place on a battlefield at all. It was in the minds of the people. Humanity's best scientists and tacticians began to see patterns, ways to turn the Ethereans' own strengths against them. We realized that the Ethereans weren't invulnerable. They had weaknesses, just like any other species. They relied on technology, on advanced systems of energy manipulation. But every system had a flaw. Every machine had a breaking point, and humanity was about to find it. The first human strike came not with weapons, but with information. A group of human hackers managed to breach an Etherean communication network. For the first time, the Ethereans realized that their technological superiority wasn't absolute. The humans had found a crack, and that was enough to tip the scales. It wasn't long before the Etherians responded. Their reaction was swift, and at first it was overwhelming. They deployed fleets of ships, massive war machines capable of wiping entire cities off the map. But the humans weren't cowed. We had prepared for this moment. With the element of surprise and the power of knowledge on our side, we fought back with everything we had. The humans' first true weapon was their ingenuity. They used everything at their disposal: ships, weapons, and most importantly, the human mind. What the Etherians didn't understand was that humans had something they didn't: the ability to think outside the box, to break the rules when necessary, and to keep pushing when everything seemed lost. It wasn't long before the Etherians realized that their gods were beginning to fall from their pedestal. They began to lose ground, slowly at first, then in bigger, more noticeable chunks. Human forces, despite being outmatched in raw power, began to push back against the Etherian forces in ways they had never expected. One of the first key victories came when a small human fleet, led by Commander Elias Grant, managed to infiltrate an Etherian stronghold on one of their most fortified moons. Using a combination of human-made decoys, stealth technology, and relentless tenacity, they took down the Etherian defenses. It was a victory that, though small in the grand scheme of things, sent a loud message. Humans were not to be underestimated. The Etherians had long believed that their place in the galaxy was untouchable. But as the first wave of battles raged, it became clear that humanity had something the Etherians could never have: the will to keep going, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The Etherians, with all their power and technology, had never faced an enemy quite like humanity. And now, the battle wasn't just about power. It was about determination. It was about proving that humans, not gods, not otherworldly beings, were the true force to be reckoned with in the universe. Turning the tide as the battles raged on, the Etherians, once so sure of their godlike supremacy, began to question everything: their power, their control. It was all starting to slip through their fingers. Humanity had, against all odds, shown them something they could not comprehend: the power of human resolve. For the Etherians, this was a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. Every move they made, every counterattack they launched, was met with surprising resistance. What they had thought was a simple skirmish had become a drawn-out conflict. It was clear now humanity wasn't going to back down, and that scared them. But it wasn't just the human will that was turning the tide. It was a human innovation that tipped the scales. The small victories the humans had secured in the previous battles had been enough to spark a new wave of technological advancements. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers were coming together, sharing their knowledge, developing new weapons and strategies. It was like the entire species had suddenly found a new purpose: to defeat the gods. One of the turning points came when a human scientist named Dr. Lucia Ramirez uncovered a vital flaw in the Etherian technology. The Etherians had long relied on an energy manipulation system that allowed them to control vast amounts of power. They used it to shield their ships, to manipulate environments, even to control the very fabric of space around them. It was their greatest strength, and yet it was also their greatest weakness. Dr. Ramirez discovered that this energy system, which seemed invincible at first, could be disrupted by a precise targeted pulse. A single, concentrated wave of energy could overload the Etherians' entire network, rendering their most advanced weaponry useless. The flaw had been there all along, hidden in plain sight. With this knowledge, humanity's forces set to work. They didn't have the luxury of overwhelming firepower, but they did have something else: resourcefulness. The new weapon was a prototype, a risky, one-shot device that could send out a pulse strong enough to disable the Etherians' energy shields. But it wasn't going to be easy. The Etherians would be prepared for this move. The humans had to act fast, and they had to be smart. The plan was set into motion. A small strike team, led by Commander Grant, would infiltrate an Etherian command ship, one of the largest and most powerful in their fleet. Their mission was simple: get close enough to fire the pulse. Weapon at the heart of the Etherian energy system. The night before the attack, Commander Grant sat alone in his quarters, reflecting on everything that had brought them to this point. He had seen countless soldiers fall, watched cities burn, and felt the weight of every decision he had made. But now, as he looked out into the stars, there was a spark of hope. Tomorrow, everything could change. the strike team managed to breach the Etherean flagship's defenses with surprising ease. The human-made decoys had worked once again. As the team advanced through the ship, they encountered fierce resistance. But it wasn't like before. The Ethereans were starting to show cracks in their once unshakable confidence. They were no longer the gods they once seemed to be. They were just another species fighting for survival. Just like humanity, when the team finally reached the core of the Etherean energy system, they faced one final obstacle. Solhar, the Etherean leader, who had been waiting for them. He stood tall, his eyes filled with an eerie calm. "You think you've won?" he said, his voice cold and resigned. "But this is just the beginning. You cannot defeat us. We are eternal." Commander Grant, with a steady hand, raised the weapon. "Not eternal enough," he muttered, before firing the pulse. The explosion was deafening. The pulse hit the core of the Etherean energy system, sending a shockwave throughout the flagship. The Ethereans' shields flickered and failed, their defenses collapsing under the weight of humanity's ingenuity. The gods were no more. Their once immense power was now nothing more than a shadow fading away, had struck a decisive blow. The Ethereans, the so-called gods of the galaxy, had been brought to their knees by the very species they had underestimated. And this was just the beginning. The final confrontation, the Ethereans had been dealt a blow, but the war was far from over. The galaxy was still in turmoil, and despite their significant losses, the Etherean leadership was far from surrendering. Solhar, their leader, had vanished after the attack, but his resolve remained unbroken. The remaining Ethereans still held immense power and had their own plans to retaliate. The final confrontation was set on a battlefield unlike any other. A sprawling, ruined world, scarred by centuries of conflict, and now the site of the last stand. Humanity had come a long way, but the Ethereans were desperate, backed into a corner, and willing to risk everything to reclaim their perceived dominance. Commander Elias Grant and his team had come to symbolize humanity's resistance, and now they would lead the final charge. The plan was simple: take down the Etherean mothership, the heart of their remaining strength. But simplicity, as they had learned before, didn't mean it would be easy. As the final battle began, the human forces engaged with everything they had. The Etherean ships, though now vulnerable without their energy shields, still packed an immense punch. Massive laser cannons tore through the sky, and explosions shook the very surface of the planet beneath them. But humanity had come prepared. The breakthrough with the pulse weapon had given them the edge they needed, and now they deployed a new tactic: overwhelming force. Combined with speed and precision, each human ship was like a hornet, darting in, striking hard, and retreating before the Ethereans had a chance to retaliate. Every battle was fought not just with weapons, but with intelligence. Human soldiers moved like clockwork, anticipating Etherean tactics, exploiting every weakness, and slowly driving the enemy back. As the battle raged on, Commander Grant led the charge to breach the Etherean mothership. It was a daunting task. The ship was larger than any human vessel, and its defenses had been reinforced since the last attack. Yet, humanity's spirit and creativity were unstoppable. Using advanced human-made EMP devices, they disabled the remaining Etherean weapon systems, leaving them vulnerable. Inside the mothership, chaos was unfolding. The remaining Ethereans fought fiercely, but they were losing ground. Grant's team, alongside the best soldiers humanity had to offer, pushed forward, knowing that this would be their only chance to end the war once and for all. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Commander Grant and his team reached the central command room. There, standing before them, was Solhar. His once godlike presence had been replaced with something different, something more human. His arrogance was gone, replaced by desperation. "You think you've won." Solhar's voice was a shadow of its former self, no longer echoing with the same confidence. "You think you've defeated us, but you're wrong. We are eternal. You cannot destroy what is eternal." Grant stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the alien leader. "You were never eternal. You were just another species, like us. And we have the will to keep going, no matter how hard it gets." Solhar's eyes flickered. With uncertainty for the first time, the Ethereans, for all their advanced technology and power, had underestimated the one thing that had kept humanity alive for centuries: the will to survive, to fight, to adapt. It wasn't technology that had defeated them. It wasn't strength. It was humanity's unwavering spirit. In that final moment, Commander Grant activated the pulse weapon one last time, sending a devastating shockwave through the Etherean ship's core. The entire mothership shook as its systems failed. The Ethereans' control over their world crumbled as the very power that had once made them invincible turned against them. The final battle ended not in a blaze of glory, but in a quiet, powerful silence. The Ethereans, once believed to be gods, were defeated. Humanity had won, not because they were more powerful, but because they refused to accept that they could be beaten. As the dust settled, the galaxy held its breath. The mighty Ethereans, who had once ruled with an iron grip, were no more. And humanity stood tall, not just as survivors, but as victors. Aftermath and reflection war was over, but the silence that followed was deafening. The galaxy, once filled with the hum of cosmic battles and the booming declarations of Etherean superiority, was now eerily quiet. The great empire of the Ethereans had crumbled, and in their place stood humanity. Victorious, yes, but forever changed. For humanity, the cost of victory was high. The battles had taken their toll. Ships were lost, cities were destroyed, and lives were shattered. Many brave souls had given everything to ensure that the galaxy would be free from the Etherean threat, and as the dust settled, the survivors were left to pick up the pieces. But amidst the pain and loss, there was something else, something much more profound. There was a deep sense of pride, of accomplishment. Humanity had done what was once thought impossible. They had faced the so-called gods of the galaxy and emerged victorious. As the final Etherean fleets drifted into the void, the rest of the galaxy watched in disbelief. Civilizations that had once bowed to the Ethereans, worshipped them like deities, now found themselves questioning everything they had ever known. The defeat of the Ethereans sent shockwaves through the cosmos. If the Ethereans could be defeated, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? But for humans, this was not just a victory over another species. This was a victory over the very idea that some beings are beyond reach, beyond challenge. It was a reminder that no matter how powerful a force may seem, there is always room for resistance, for change. Humanity, small as it may have seemed in the vastness of space, had proven that the true power of any species lies not in its might, but in its resilience. Back on Earth, people celebrated, but not in the way one might expect. There were no grand parades, no overwhelming celebrations. Instead, there was quiet reflection. Humanity had just won an incredible battle, but it came with a somber understanding. The victory was not a guarantee of peace. The galaxy, now without the Etherean threat, was still a vast and dangerous place. Other challenges would arise, and humanity would have to be ready to face them. Commander Elias Grant, who had led humanity to victory, stood on the balcony of a command center, gazing out at the stars. He wasn't thinking about the battles won, or the accolades he would receive. His mind was filled with the faces of the men and women who had fought beside him, who had given everything for this victory. Their sacrifice weighed heavy on his heart. "We didn't just defeat them," he said softly to his second-in-command, Emma Diaz. "We showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of. We proved that no matter how dark things seem, there's always hope, there's always a way forward." Emma nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars as well. "They thought we were weak," she said, her voice firm. "They underestimated us, and that's why we won." For the first time, humanity stood tall in the universe. Not as a species that relied on technology or brute strength, but as a species that had the will to endure, the intelligence to outthink its enemies, and the heart to fight for what was right. The Ethereans, for all their power, had been driven by their belief in their own invincibility. But in the end, it was their arrogance that led to their downfall. They had looked at humanity and seen nothing more than a species to be watched from afar, to be kept in check. They had never imagined that humanity would challenge them much, less defeat them. Now, as humanity looked toward the future, the galaxy felt like a different place. There were no more gods to worship, no more invincible beings to fear. The galaxy was vast, yes, but it was also full of possibilities. Humanity had proven that it could shape its own destiny. And so, the message echoed across the stars. We are humanity. We are not gods, but we can defeat them. We are not perfect, but we have the power to make our own future. In the end, humanity had done more than just defeat the Etherans. They had shattered the illusion of invincibility. They had proven that no matter who or what you are, you can be defeated. And that, in itself, was the greatest victory of all. As we look back on the story of humanity's battle against the Etherans, there's one thing that stands out above all else. Never underestimate the human spirit. Throughout history, we've been told that we're small, fragile, and insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe. We've been told that we could never stand against the gods of the cosmos, that we would always be outmatched by the advanced civilizations out there. But this story shows us something different. It shows us that what truly matters isn't the size of our armies or the strength of our weapons. It's the strength of our hearts, the resilience of our minds, and the unyielding belief that we can overcome any obstacle. No matter how daunting the Etherans, for all their power, believed that their place in the universe was unshakable. They were convinced that no species could challenge their rule, that no one could ever rival their might. But they never counted on humanity's will to fight our ingenuity and our ability to adapt when faced with impossible odds. We didn't defeat the Etherans with overwhelming force. We didn't defeat them by being stronger, faster, or more technologically advanced. We defeated them with determination, with cleverness, and with the conviction that no one is untouchable, no matter how invincible they seem. The Etherans, in the end, were just another species that humanity could overcome. They were not gods, but beings who had been trapped in their own arrogance. And once humanity realized that, the battle was ours to win. This victory wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about sending a message across the galaxy. Humanity will not be subdued. We are capable of great things, and we will always rise to meet the challenge, no matter how high the stakes. As we look ahead, we know there will be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But we've proven something important. No challenge is too great. No matter what the universe throws at us, humanity has the strength, the ingenuity, and the heart to fight back. So, as the stars shimmer above us, let us remember this victory, not just as a triumph of war, but as a triumph of the human spirit. A triumph that proves once and for all that we are more than capable of achieving the impossible. The Etherans may have thought they were gods, but they were wrong. In the end, they were just another species that humanity defeated. And with that victory, humanity has proven that anything is possible.